There's a road in northern New Jersey that the locals whisper about. Not in the way people whisper about a rumor or a passing ghost story told around a campfire. No, this is a different kind of whispering. The kind that comes with lowered voices and eyes that dart toward the door as if the road itself might be listening. It is called Clinton Road. And if you have never heard that name before, consider yourself fortunate. Because once you do, you will never drive through a dark forest the same way again. Clinton Road runs approximately 10 miles through the dense, unlit woodlands of West Milford, Passaic County, New Jersey. It begins at Route 23 near the small town of Newfoundland and winds northward to its terminus at Warwick Turnpike near Upper Greenwood Lake. That description makes it sound simple, ordinary, just a road. But the moment you turn off Route 23 and feel the pavement swallow the warmth of the highway lights behind you, you understand why this road has a reputation unlike any other in America. The trees close in immediately. They do not stand at a polite distance. They lean over the road like enormous crooked figures watching your headlights with silent, ancient patience. There are no street lamps, not a single one, for 10 miles. No houses visible from the road in most stretches, no gas stations, no phone signal in several areas. You are, by every measure, completely alone. The road itself is narrow, 2 lanes of poorly maintained asphalt that winds and curves without warning, lined by guardrails that seem deliberately inadequate. Deep curves arrive suddenly from the darkness, and the trees press so close to the shoulder that your side mirrors almost graze branches as you pass. In certain sections, even during the day, the forest canopy blocks the sky so thoroughly that it feels like driving through a tunnel made of living wood. At night, with nothing but your headlights cutting against the blackness, the isolation becomes something physical, something you can feel pressing against your chest. The road was originally built in the 1700s, predating the United States itself. For most of its history, it connected small, scattered communities of hunters, farmers, and ironworkers who lived in these barefoot mountains. The Barefoot Mountain Range, part of the broader New Jersey highlands, is wild terrain. The forests are old growth in many sections. The reservoir that sits adjacent to the road, Clinton Reservoir, is vast and dark and managed by the Newark Watershed Conservation and Development Corporation. Most of the land surrounding Clinton Road is publicly owned, undeveloped woodland, which means that even today, in the 21st century, if something happened to you on that road, no one would hear it. In 1905, a wealthy English-born railroad official and banker named Richard James Cross decided to build his family a summer home in these mountains. Not a cabin, not a lodge, a castle. He purchased several hundred acres of densely forested land near the reservoir, and construction began on what would become one of the most singular private residences in New Jersey history. The walls rose 3 stories high, stone masonry, Tudor in style, nestled into a ridge overlooking the wilderness. Cross reportedly spent the equivalent of over $40 million in today's money on its construction. His family called the estate Barefoot. Locals would later call it Cross Castle. And long after Richard Cross died in 1917, long after the Newark Watershed Commission acquired the property and fire consumed its wooden interior, long after teenagers and thrill-seekers began making pilgrimage to its ruins, the name Cross Castle would become synonymous with something that no architect's blueprints could have ever planned: evil. But Cross Castle is only one layer of this road's darkness. To understand Clinton Road fully, you must understand that it did not become haunted all at once. It gathered its reputation the way a wound gathers infection, slowly, quietly, and in ways that are impossible to ignore by the time they become visible. Even in 1905, a local historian named J. Percy Crayon wrote about the forests near the Clinton Furnace, a 19th-century iron smelter that still stands near the road today, its conical stone chimney rising from the undergrowth like something from a fever dream. Crayon wrote that it was, quote, never advisable to pass through the 5-mile woods after dark, for tradition tells us they were infested by bands of robbers and counterfeiters, to say nothing of the witches that held their nightly dances and carousels at Green Island, and the ghosts that then made their appearance in such frightful forms that it was more terrifying to the peaceful inhabitants than wild animals. Those words were written over 100 years ago, and they are still true today.
The Clinton furnace itself has a story of its own. Built in 1826, it produced iron for nearly 3 decades before falling silent. The structure still stands today, a tall conical stone edifice that looms beside the road, partially hidden by vegetation, fenced off by the Newark Water Department. It was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1976, but for decades before that recognition, visitors to Clinton Road believed something else entirely. They believed it was a druidic temple, a place where an ancient cult performed rituals in the circular stone chambers. And whether that belief is true or not, the shape of that furnace in the dark, half swallowed by the forest, glowing faintly in flashlight beams, does absolutely nothing to discourage the imagination. This is where the story truly begins. You are driving north on Clinton Road. It is just past midnight. The last glow of Route 23 vanished in your rearview mirror several minutes ago. The road ahead curves to the left and then to the right, your headlights sweeping across a wall of black trees with each turn. You reach into your cup holder for your phone. No signal. You take a slow breath. The car moves forward. And somewhere ahead of you, just around the next bend, is the bridge at Dead Man's Curve.
Dead Man's Curve. Even the name is enough to make your grip tighten on the steering wheel. This section of Clinton Road, a sharp bend near the Clinton Reservoir where the road crosses a brook, has been the center of this highway's most enduring legend for generations. It is a simple enough bridge, unremarkable in daylight, stone guardrails, tea-colored water below. But stop here at midnight, lean over the edge, and drop a coin into the water, and something extraordinary is said to happen. The legend of the Ghost Boy of Clinton Road is the oldest and most persistent story associated with this stretch of highway. The accounts vary slightly in their details, as all true legends do, but the core of the story remains consistent across decades of tellings. There is a boy here, a child, who died somewhere along the water's edge or on the road above the brook. Some versions say he drowned in Clinton Reservoir while swimming. Others say he fell from the bridge itself while sitting on the guardrail. One particularly chilling account says the boy was challenged by his friends to stand on the bridge alone while they drove to Route 23 and back. When they returned, he was dead. No one knows exactly how he died. No one knows exactly when. But nearly everyone who has ever visited this bridge at the stroke of midnight knows what is supposed to happen if you throw a coin into the water below. It comes back. Reporters from Weird NJ magazine, the publication that has devoted more coverage to Clinton Road than any other outlet in the country, visited the bridge and found dozens of coins on the creek bed, resting among the stones below the surface. Coins thrown by visitors who were testing the legend. But no one had dived in to retrieve them. They were simply there, waiting, or returning.
The accounts from real people who have experienced this are not the kind of accounts you can easily dismiss. A resident named Dina from West Milford described throwing a quarter from the bridge with friends and hearing, not a minute later, the sound of a second splash in the water below. The precise sound of something dropping into the water from above, followed by ripples spreading outward across the surface. Then, reflected in the water, she claimed to see the face of a child looking up. She ran back to the car without looking again. Another anonymous visitor reported stopping on the bridge on the drive home one night, and as their companion leaned over to point out the child's name they said was painted on the bridge's side, something struck the car window hard from outside. Metal against glass. A coin or something coin-sized thrown with force. There was no one standing near the car. There was nothing on the road. A third, perhaps most unsettling version of the Ghost Boy legend says the interaction is not passive. not a harmless returned coin. This version says that if you lean over the bridge rail to look into the water below, the boy will push you in. His motive, according to the legend, is not malice. He is trying to save you. He died because a car struck him while he was bending down to pick up a coin from the road, and so he pushes those who lean too far over the rail to save them from repeating his fate. The road, according to this version of the story, does not simply haunt, it replays. Over and over a child's death, echoing through decades like a sound that refuses to stop bouncing off canyon walls. But stop right there, because the ghost boy is only one face of what lives on this road, and what comes next is not a legend. It is documented fact.
On May 18th, 1983, a cyclist pedaling along Clinton Road in West Milford spotted something in the wooded area beside the road. A large bird, a turkey vulture, was circling low over the trees, then another. The cyclist stopped, curious about the unusual concentration of scavenger birds in the middle of a forest road. He walked into the woods. He found a green garbage bag, partially torn, lying in the undergrowth. Inside that bag was the body of a man named Daniel Deppner. He had been murdered. The body had been carefully wrapped and dumped in the forest beside Clinton Road, hidden by the tree line, a disposal site chosen for its notorious remoteness. The man convicted of that murder was Richard Leonard Kuklinski, known throughout the criminal underworld by a name that still carries cold dread today, the Iceman. Kuklinski was a contract killer for the New Jersey mob, a man who claimed to have committed between 100 and 200 murders over the course of his career. He was convicted of 5 murders, sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms, and died in prison in 2006, and he chose Clinton Road as his dumping ground. Not randomly, deliberately, because he knew exactly what that road was. He knew that no one who saw something strange on Clinton Road at night would stop long enough to investigate. He knew that in the darkness of those woods, a body could lie undiscovered for days, and he was almost right. The Iceman, a real killer, a documented murder, a body in a garbage bag on the roadside. This is not folklore. This happened on Clinton Road, and it is impossible to drive that 10-mile stretch now without thinking about it, about what else might be in those trees, about how many other bags were never found because no vulture happened to circle at the right moment, because no cyclist happened to glance left at the right instant. Now you are on the road again, past Dead Man's Curve. The bridge is behind you. Your coin is somewhere in that dark water below. The road pulls you forward deeper into the forest. The trees are taller here. The sky has completely disappeared. And something in your headlights, just for a moment, seems to catch. A flash of white in the undergrowth. You slow down. You lean forward against the steering wheel. Nothing. Just the forest. Just the dark. You press the accelerator again, and as you do, your rear-view mirror lights up behind you. Headlights, a vehicle, moving fast. The headlights in your mirror do not slow down. They keep coming, steady and close, filling your rear-view mirror with white light that makes the dark road ahead seem somehow darker by contrast. You accelerate slightly. The headlights accelerate with you. You take the next curve. The headlights disappear briefly behind the tree line, then they're back. You take a deeper breath. You speed up again, and then, without warning, without explanation, the headlights are gone. Not around a bend, not behind a hill, gone. As if whatever was following you simply ceased to exist. The phantom truck of Clinton Road is one of the most widely reported and most persistently documented paranormal experiences associated with this highway. The Travel Channel's program, Most Terrifying Places in America 2, dedicated an entire segment to it. Residents of West Milford have described the experience for decades.
The accounts are strikingly similar across different witnesses, different years, different times of night. A dark pickup truck, sometimes described as black, sometimes as a very dark color that seems to absorb light rather than reflect it, appears from nowhere on Clinton Road at night. It follows closely, aggressively, as if threatening, and then at the northern end of the road or at certain unnamed points along the route, it simply vanishes. No turn, no exit, no explanation, just absence. Some who have encountered the phantom truck describe it as moving faster than any vehicle should on those narrow, curving roads. Others describe the headlights appearing to float slightly, detached from any visible vehicle chassis, drifting above the road surface as if the vehicle itself is only partially present in this reality. One Reddit user who claimed to have lived near Clinton Road for years wrote that the truck does not chase everyone, it chooses. And when it chooses you, it stays with you no matter how fast you drive until you reach the end of the road. Then it is gone. And you can never be entirely certain in the days that follow that you imagined the whole thing. Now consider this alongside a report from a group of campers at Terrace Pond, a glacial lake accessible by trail from Clinton Road. The pond sits on a ridge high above the road, crystal clear and remote, a place of absolute isolation. This group camped there overnight, and around 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 men in park ranger uniforms approached their fire. The rangers were young, pleasant, professional. They warned the campers about the fire, asked about their vehicles parked below, and told them they would not be ticketed. They left. The next morning, police and Newark watershed officers found the campers and issued fines for each vehicle. When the campers explained that 2 rangers had cleared them for the night, the officers exchanged a look that none of the campers could read. One officer asked for a physical description of the rangers. The campers described them carefully. The officer was quiet for a moment. Then he told them, flatly, that there were no park rangers currently patrolling this area, and that the 2 men they had described matched the appearance of 2 rangers who had died on duty on that exact terrain in 1939. The campers drove home without speaking. Cross Castle, the ruins of which still scar the hillside above Clinton Road, added its own particular darkness to the road's reputation long before its demolition in 1988. What Richard Cross built as a magnificent Edwardian summer estate became, in the decades following his death, something that would have horrified him. The Newark watershed acquired the property in 1919, and after a fire gutted much of its wooden interior, the stone shell remained. Teenagers and thrill-seekers made it a destination, and somewhere along the way, the castle was found by people who came not for adventure, but for ritual. Witnesses who visited the castle in the 1970s and 1980s described satanic inscriptions painted across the interior walls in red, including passages that one visitor later identified as writings from Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible, texts from the Church of Satan, inscribed inside an abandoned stone castle on a ridge deep in the New Jersey wilderness. These were not the work of bored teenagers with spray cans. They were deliberate, specific, liturgical. They suggested organized practice, an active group, a regular presence. Other witnesses described evidence of animal sacrifice inside the ruins, bones, feathers, ritual arrangements. One visitor described a girl in his group collapsing at the castle threshold, becoming rigid and impossible to move, her eyes rolling back. When she recovered, she described a vision of a child being killed. They left immediately and never returned. But the castle was only the anchor. Whatever energy gathered there bled into the forest around it and into the road below. Witnesses across decades have reported an oppressive feeling that descends upon drivers as they pass the section of Clinton Road closest to the former castle site. A physical sensation of pressure in the chest, a sudden and irrational certainty that something in the trees is watching. Not curious watching, predatory watching. One woman who drove the road with her sister's husband, and her boyfriend around 12:30 in the morning described a feeling so overwhelming that she could not breathe. She described it as pure evil pressing in from outside the car. She had never experienced anything like it before or since.
She would not say whether she believed in the supernatural, but she said with absolute certainty that she would never drive Clinton Road again. And then there is the matter of the creatures. The woods surrounding Clinton Road are home to real wildlife. Black bears, copperhead snakes, coyotes, red-tailed hawks, and white-tailed deer. These animals are not legends, they are documented residents of the Bearfort Mountain ecosystem. But alongside these verifiable species, witnesses over the years have reported things that do not fit any known taxonomy. A grayish-white wolf-like creature with red and yellow eyes, seen not once but in separate incidents by people who had never compared notes. A dog of some kind, floating above the road surface rather than running, pursuing a truck along a side road until the truck reached the highway and pulled away. A monkey, seen clearly by two separate women in a single vehicle, walking along the road shoulder in the darkness as if it had somewhere to be. The leading theory for these exotic sightings involves jungle habitat, a now closed Warner Brothers animal theme park that once operated near West Milford and shut its doors permanently in 1976. According to this theory, not all of Jungle Habitat's animals were properly accounted for when the park closed. Some escaped, some were released, and over the intervening decades, isolated in the vast, undeveloped wilderness around Clinton Road, they bred. They crossbred with local wildlife, they adapted, they became something new, something that has no name in any field guide, something that moves through the trees at night and watches the road with eyes that catch the headlights wrong. If that explanation is true, it is perhaps the most disturbing of all, because it means the creatures are not supernatural, they are real. They are there, right now, in those woods, in the dark, and no one is counting them, and no one truly knows what they have become. You are near the end of the road now, nearly 10 miles of darkness behind you. The northern terminus at Warwick Turnpike is just ahead. The trees begin to thin fractionally, and for the first time in what feels like an hour, you can see a strip of sky above the road. Stars, if the night is clear. The weight in your chest loosens slightly. You almost feel safe. Do not mistake that feeling for the truth, because Clinton Road does not release you cleanly. It follows you. Ask anyone who has driven it, and they will tell you the road stays with you after you leave it. Not in the way a good memory stays with you, warm and welcome. In the way a nightmare does, in fragments. A sound you cannot place. A shadow at the edge of a parking lot, the sudden irrational certainty at 2 in the morning that you are being watched from outside your window. There is one more story that needs to be told, a story that is neither legend nor folklore. It is history, and it is documented. In 1988, demolition crews arrived at the site of Cross Castle to tear down what remained of its stone walls, which the Newark Watershed Commission had declared an unsafe structure and an attractive nuisance. The crews did their work methodically, reducing the 3-story walls to rubble, clearing the foundations. But when they reached the basement levels of the castle, when they opened the chambers below ground, they found something that stopped them cold. Written on the interior walls of the subsurface rooms were satanic scriptures. Not graffiti in the conventional sense, not names and dates and crude drawings. Inscribed text, deliberate, organized, ritualistic. The demolition crew could not explain how those writings had gotten there. The rooms, according to the structure's layout, had no accessible entrance. The walls should have been unreachable, and yet the writing was there. In the dark, in the stone, sealed beneath the castle like something that had been deliberately hidden away. There is a detail about Clinton Road that is easy to overlook, but once you know it, it is impossible to forget. This road is arguably the most haunted in America, regularly featured on Travel Channel specials, cataloged by Weird NJ magazine in a special dedicated issue, cited by paranormal researchers, investigated by ghost hunters, written about in newspaper features from the New York Times to the Star-Ledger. In the words of the local police chief himself, speaking to a reporter in 1998, "It's a long, desolate stretch and makes the imagination go nuts." That is what a police officer said, on the record, about a road in his own jurisdiction. Consider what that means.
The man whose job it is to be rational, to dismiss supernatural explanations, to document only what can be measured and prosecuted, that man acknowledged on the record that something about Clinton Road defies normal explanation. Not that he had seen a ghost, not that he believed in the paranormal, simply that the road itself, the darkness, the isolation, the accumulated weight of everything that has happened there, does something to the human mind that cannot be fully explained or predicted. What has happened there, over decades, over generations, adds up to something extraordinary. A real mob hitman chose these woods to dispose of his victims. A real castle became a real site of documented occult practice. Real witnesses reported phantom vehicles, spectral children, floating lights, wolf creatures, and ghost park rangers. Real demolition workers found sealed chambers with impossible writing on the walls. And beneath all of it, a forest that has been described as oppressive and predatory by dozens of independent witnesses who had no knowledge of each other and no reason to fabricate their experiences. The ghost of the girl in the 1988 blue Chevy Camaro is one of the road's more recent legends. Recent by the standard of a road that has been accumulating stories since the 1700s. The story is simple and devastating. A young woman was racing down Clinton Road toward Route 23, pushing her car through the sharp curves when she lost control on the sharpest bend and struck the concrete barrier head-on. She died instantly. The legend says that if you speak of her death while driving Clinton Road at night, if you tell the story to someone in the passenger seat, if you describe the accident aloud, you will see headlights in the darkness ahead, a car moving toward you, and as it passes, if you look closely enough in the fraction of a second it takes to go by, you will make out the shape, a 1988 Chevy Camaro, blue, moving fast, moving without sound, and in the driver's seat, if the night is clear enough and your eyes are sharp enough and you are brave enough to look, something that used to be a young woman behind the wheel, still driving toward a bend she will never survive. The lights along Clinton Road, the hundreds of blue, red, and white lights seen moving through the trees on both sides, staying level with cars regardless of speed, stopping when cars stop, blinking out without warning, have never been explained. No electrical infrastructure exists on that road. No utility lines run through those sections of forest. There is nothing in those trees that should produce organized, responsive light. And yet multiple unconnected witnesses over the years have described the same experience. Lights that track you, lights that respond, lights that know where you are. You have reached the end of Clinton Road, the junction with Warwick Turnpike. The trees retreat, pavement widens. Somewhere not far ahead there are people and streetlights and the comfortable noise of ordinary life. You exhale. You check your phone. 1 bar of signal. You keep driving. But something is nagging at you. A question that formed somewhere in those 10 miles of darkness and hasn't let go. You think about the ghost boy at the bridge, about the coin you may or may not have thrown, about the splash you may or may not have heard afterward. You think about the body wrapped in a garbage bag found right off that road in 1983, about the demolition worker standing in a sealed underground chamber staring at words on a wall that should not have been there, about the 2 rangers who walked out of the forest in 1939 and, apparently, never stopped walking. Here is the question that the road leaves inside you, the one that persists long after the trees have gone and the signal bars have returned and your house is locked behind you. What is the difference between a place that is haunted and a place where so many terrible things have happened that the darkness itself has become permanent? What is the difference between a ghost and an echo that never stops? Clinton Road has had killers walk its woods. It has had rituals practiced in its ruins. It has had children die on its bridges and women die on its curves. It has had things move in its forests that have no name. It has had 100 years of fear and darkness and violence poured into 10 miles of cracked asphalt and ancient trees. And every night, after the last car passes and the road goes silent again, it waits. Patient, quiet, as it has always waited, as it will always wait.
The darkness of Clinton Road does not need you to believe in it. It was here before you arrived. It will be here long after you leave.
But here is the one thing every person who has ever driven that road will tell you, without exception, no matter how skeptical they were when they started, no matter how loudly they laughed at the legends before they got in the car, no matter how firmly they told their friends that ghosts aren't real and roads are just roads. When you are on Clinton Road at midnight, and you are past the last guardrail before Dead Man's Curve, and the forest is pressing in on both sides, and there is no light except what your headlights make, and the silence outside is the kind of silence that feels inhabited, you will not stop on that bridge. Not for any reason. Not tonight.